If you lived in the world presented in Star Trek The Next Generation, I think it would be a truly hellish place if you weren't a member of Starfleet. And I believe the economy is completely unworkable the way Gene Roddenberry eventually presents it. I mean, unworkable to the point where humans could not flourish. Now, understand straight up, I love the show. I could easily watch it over and over and over again. I have many, many favorite episodes. I thought it was incredibly well written, well acted. I think the strength of the show comes from the idea of that humans have transcended the pettiness of our age without being some kind of superhuman. They're still people we recognize, they just don't have the hang-ups and problems we have. Now, if you take a look at back to the original series, I think that place would still be a pretty decent place to live. Uh, you see a lot of elements of what we would understand in terms of a functional economy. They have something called credits. Um, Obviously, you can get something for those credits. You can probably save them up and buy things you want to get. You could probably uh, buy a ship, uh, travel, be a merchant, all kinds of things you could potentially do. I like one of the episodes from the original series, Cat's Paw. It's one where you don't realize it initially, but they're aliens that kind of look like little chickens, and they have the power to put whatever thought in people's minds, wherever. So they're essentially living uh, in a total illusion, and it's kind of like their Halloween episode. It's cute, but there's one scene where the alien, in guise of a human-like being, is attempting to bribe the away team to go, and he presents gems and all kinds of things on the table, and Kirk just kind of picks one up, calls it a shiny trinket, and drops it. Says we can manufacture these on the ship, and that's kind of cool because it kind of shows that whole we've evolved, we've become better, we don't need things like that. But yet at the same time, they still have a workable, recognizable system. Now, the problem with Next Generation is money is gone. Roddenberry was absolutely adamant on the idea that money's gone. Now, I know a lot of the have been written where people try to patch over it and make it work. And I know they had several episodes on DS9 that were dedicated specifically to trying to show ways the economy would work. But the thing is the moment you get away from the no money rule that Roddenberry sets up, you're kind of out of canon. And uh, I'm strictly speaking to Roddenberry's vision of how things work. Now, I know the idea of you could get everything and there's no money involved sounds kind of intriguing, but it creates unbelievable amounts of problems because there's far more to the world uh, than just having a replicator that makes food for you. Uh, Consider housing. Does everybody live in the exact same type of house all over the world? Uh, are you allowed to live in some larger house that maybe your family passed down to you, or does everyone have to live in the exact same cookie cutter size house? How do you determine that? Is it entirely based on family size? Uh, do you get perks and privileges for being part of Starfleet? Uh, Something uh, to take into consideration is that Star Trek, and I like that they did this, that essentially there's no robots. Robots are a complication. I mean, essentially, androids are very limited. When they do appear, they're not part of the tapestry of a workforce. By the way, I'm not talking about any of the new alleged Trek. I mean, I'm sorry, it's garbage. And there's fan fiction out there that's far better than anything the modern Treks are doing right now. And they've completely abandoned Roddenberry's vision. Okay, so we have no robots. And the idea is people strive to be the best, whatever it is they can be. So if you're a doctor, you keep working to become the best doctor ever and the best person all around. So, and great idea. I like this. I'm not against this at all, but I don't see how it's possible without some kind of economic exchange system. Okay, first, consider that so I would think in this society one of the pinnacles of achievement would be making it to Starfleet. I mean that kind of shows that you're the best of the best. I mean they don't pick people that are sub performers, or when they do, they're people who have a lot of potential for growth. So how many people make it to Starfleet? 1%? Probably a lot less than that. I'm sure the competition for those slots is immense. So, what happens if your shot is to be the best engineer or the best transporter chief or the best sick bay doctor or the best helmsman or the best security guy in Starfleet and you don't make the cut? And it's pretty clear you're never going to make the cut. Do you just spend the rest of your life training and training and training and training, hoping that someday you're going to eventually get there? Because odds are still against that you're going to make it. And there's no rotational system that makes sure everybody gets their chance at sitting in the captain's chair or sitting at the helm or whatever other positions that they have available in Starfleet. So, what's your life like when you don't make the cut and you know you're never going to? And that's the end of that. You can't. You're the second tier of the best you can be. What motivates you to do things once you haven't made the cut to be in Starfleet? Okay, so you're a local doctor. What drives you to better yourself if that's essentially the top you can do? I mean, obviously healing people probably would be pretty cool. So you could probably make the doctor thing work to a certain extent. But there's a lot of other jobs it's going to be really hard to be the best of the best of. Okay, so consider like one of the it crops up in numerous episodes where somebody presents somebody a gift, and the gift is generally some kind of either antique or some kind of oddity from another planet that isn't there. And the key is it's something that hasn't been replicated. It's this thing that they went out and acquired and brought back, and they're giving it as a gift, and it shows that's an incredibly good gift. Well, the first problem you have to look at is there's now an inferred hierarchy of value. Okay, if I find this neat thing and acquire it somehow as a gift to give to you, clearly it's better than something if I just replicated an absolute duplicate of it. I mean, obviously, the real Venus de Milo is something that would be highly desired, and copies I could literally shoot out 1,000 of them, and people yeah, it's, whatever, nice, maybe at best an educational piece. So how do you acquire these non-replicated things if there's no trade system, if there is no means of exchange? Uh, does prostitution run rampant in Federation space? Well, probably not, because Gene Roddenberry was a free love kind of guy. So I don't think people are trading their services along those lines. I think it's just happening for free. So let's throw some kind of call them anachronisms from the original show and try to move them forward. What about dilithium miners? Well, in the original series, dilithium miners are ridiculously wealthy. They're rich. So they have a reason to go to these far flung, distant planets with no functional civilization and live like hermits for a while until they make bank. Oh, what do you do in the next generation? How do you be the best of the best of the best dilithium miner? Why would you want to even do that? Remember, there's no robots. So at the very least, even if there's a lot of automated equipment, somebody's got to tend to it. Why would you want to be that person? Consider the Picard vineyard. How does one become a vintner in the next generation? You know, the vineyard is being run by Picard's brother, and it's been passed down from family member to family member for generation. Awful nice of the Federation to let them do that. But how does one break into the venting business? Let's say I'm living in the TNG world, and I'm like, I want to be a vintner, the best of the best of the best of the best. And in order to do that, I have to have a vineyard, and I have to have it on good ground, etc., etc. It's impossible. I can't buy it. I can't trade for it. There's literally nothing I can do to get it. I mean, there's nothing in the canon that even says that, let's say I serve Starfleet for 20 years, I don't get a bunch of acres of land or anything out of it, at least as far as I've ever heard. So nobody can go into that niche. Nobody can be that person. I mean, I suppose you could try to apprentice the scattering handful of vintners that were left and hope that somehow they allow you to become a master vintner and take over their vineyard when they either retire or die. But again, that's just as bad as Starfleet. You'd be such a tiny percentage likelihood that that could be you that is unlikely. How do you travel if you're not in Starfleet? I know there's either it was a book or one of the episodes talked about the idea that people accrue travel credits. You know, a desperate attempt to work around the money system. Okay, how do you accrue these travel credits? I mean, do you have to be a good boy or a good girl to get them? If you have the wrong ideas on things, do you get them? It's starting to sound kind of totalitarian at that moment. So let's say you actually do, you get credits. How do you get to where you want to go? How do you move someplace? How do you like say, okay, well, I no longer want to live on Earth. I want to live on Alpha Centauri, one of the planets around Alpha Centauri. How do you up and move? Well, it sounds like you pretty much just gotta like ask for permission and wait in line. And it doesn't sound like you can buy or trade your way there. And what do you do once you're there? You're in the same predicament you started off here. Can you build a ship? Probably pretty complicated, so probably beyond the means of an individual to build a ship. You know, maybe they might be able to build something that might flit about the solar system, but I mean, uh, it would be quite an undertaking. So let's say you said, boy, I think the Federation just blows chunks. I don't even want to be in the Federation anymore. I want to be someplace else. How do you do that? How, if you don't have the ability to pay to leave and pay to set up someplace else, how do you get there? So you ask permission, you say to the Fed, hey, I don't want to be a citizen of your Federation anymore. I want to go to this planet outside the Federation. How does that happen? There might be a pretty long line of people waiting to do that. Let's say you want to colonize a planet where you like a whole bunch of people who are like-minded saying, hey, the way the Federation does things is horrible. I don't want to be here, and these couple thousand people who are with me don't want to do this either. How do you get the Federation to allow you to go colonize another planet? I'm sure the line for that is pretty long too. So to me, you're basically in a system where it's virtually impossible to be the best person you can be. And mind you, I like the idea of that, and if it were possible, that would be a wonderful place. But by taking the money out of it, it's very hard to for a person to reach some kind of pinnacle, work hard, and then take that hard work and translate it into something else. I mean, if you're, let's say you're back in TOS days, well, let's say you're that dilithium miner and you're making money. And let's say your goal is to run a vineyard. I'm gonna go back to Earth with all my cash. I'm gonna buy out some old family estate and set up a vineyard. You could do that. You work hard, and you could end up being a vintner, and you could end up working to become the best vintner you possibly could. Well, here there's no connection. Okay, well, if you're a dilithium miner, well, you work to be the best dilithium miner you can be, but there's no benefit beyond that, and it doesn't sound like a benefit at all. You can't translate that hard work into another dream. So the holes in the system are incredible. And it's entirely due to a lack of some form of monetary trade system. If there were a monetary trade system in place, it would actually be, and it doesn't have to look like our system at all, but then the next generation world would be paradise because anyone could potentially achieve anything if they put enough effort into it. If you didn't make it to Starfleet, you just work at something else very hard, save up, and then get what it is you want to get. Well, hope that's food for thought for you. Not particularly weighty stuff tonight, but hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you soon in the future.